Okay. I feel like I need headphones.
I know. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Books Closed. This episode is sponsored by TatSoul. Today we are broadcasting to you from beautiful and interesting Portland, Oregon. Do you say Oregon or Oregon?
I say Oregon.
Oregon.
But I also say other words differently than they say words here. I say words like horrible.
Horrible.
I think horrible is East Coast.
Yeah, maybe. I say horrible.
You say horrible. Do you say orange?
Yeah.
Yeah, I say orange and horrible and
What do you call those little things that you can sprinkle on ice cream?
sprinkles. I don't call them jimmies.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Then we can continue this
Okay.
conversation.
Yeah. Jimmies.
All right, so I'm here at a coffee shop this time, not at a typical tattoo shop, because tattoo shops are so last week. This week, we're doing the coffee shop thing. And my guest,
Hey, I'm Seth.
this is Seth.
Ciferri. Seth Ciferri.
You may know him. You may recognize him from the tattoo world or the coffee world or the machine world or the internet world or whatever world. You've been in a lot of worlds in your career. So this is a podcast about tattooing, but also about internet, technology, social media, all those things. You're a businessman. You've had many different businesses over time. What do you think the best thing about the internet is as far as starting a business?
On the surface, it's just a reach that you typically wouldn't have, through traditional means. Without internet, there's a lot more legwork. It just, I don't know, makes reaching a larger audience a lot easier. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of people on the internet.
Do you think that it's harder to stand out, though, because there are a lot more people and a lot more other competing businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, I think it depends on what you're doing.
What have you done to stand out in the past? Or
I don't think I have.
no?
No, I don't think I've done anything to stand out on the internet. I think there are people that do a much better job of standing out, and I think I'm okay at the internet in spite of myself. I'm middle-aged and I'm a dad, and I don't know how to use Snapchat.
I don't think anyone uses Snapchat anymore.
I think people do. The same week that I realized when I gave up on Snapchat was the same week that I first fell in the shower. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm old. I'm too old.
And you had to install those handles to get yourself in and out of the tub.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I just can't do it.
So when do you remember first joining the social media force?
I think it depends on what you consider social media. If you look at the forums, the internet forums, that was about 20 years ago, and it's there's been a lot of different incarnations of things, not just the obvious big ones, but there's been all sorts of little ones that have popped up here and there. And I think I probably got on Instagram fairly early. Doug Hardy turned me on to it, and he was like posting pictures of cats, and I was like, oh, cool. There's pictures of cats.
Yeah, the wealth of cats.
And, well, I posted a few pictures of my kids, I think, were the first few things I put on Instagram, and then like a picture of a dog. And I was like, and then I realized that it was a tool. I didn't realize at first. I was just like, oh, it's a thing on my phone. And then I was like, oh, this is actually a massive network. Every day it was like, did you see this post or that post, and what so-and-so posted? And there wasn't even any explanation as to like what they meant by that. You just knew that they posted something online. It's like it just became a given.
And to fast forward to now, I've always thought that, because we've seen different social media platforms come and go, and I think when they hit a critical mass, it's when there are more people trying to promote themselves or something than there are just normal people. And I feel like Instagram has kind of hit that point where there's more people trying to like sell you something or show you something or put it out, where it outnumbers the people that might actually get to. You know what I mean? Because like on MySpace, it got to a point where people were using it solely as a tool, to the point where no one was actually like a patron, I guess, to the things that people were trying to put out there.
And it's kind of a two-edged sword, like sometimes it feels weird when multiple posts, consecutively will only seem salesy to me. Like for, me, when I use it, I don't really use it to sell machines anymore, and I don't really use it to push anything, because I think I've just gotten so tired of seeing that and feeling like I was part of that it's just become less and less. And now that I use it for, I would post a picture of my kids or of a tree or my girlfriend or a dog, and I lose followers because it's not, and people are like, why don't you post more pictures of machines or whatever else? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to sell anything, like it's not what I'm thinking right now. I'm trying to have a life and kind of make this internet presence be like at least somewhat reflective or representative of my actual life, and not just the highlight reel that all the tattooers want to see, the tattoo fans.
As far as selling machines on Instagram, because I remember when I first started tattooing, you had a website that pretty regularly you were putting a lot of machines on, and I bought a bunch of machines from there. But it must have been so much easier when you can just take some photos, put them right on Instagram, and then pretty much immediately sell most of the stuff you put up there.
It changed the format completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, most people that use the internet do so from a mobile device now.
Yep.
With our back end on for Black Claw, we can look and see how many people, literally what percentage come from mobile and what come from desktop or laptop or whatever.
Yeah, it's like 88% or something.
It's more than that. For us, it's 95%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's insane. And, knowing that that's the direction it's going, why bother, putting something you're selling on a website unless that's you really, if you're selling, like one-of-a-kind items, if you're selling tattoo machines or a pair of vintage boots or whatever it is, if it's just a thing, it's almost a waste of time to put it on a website, because by the time it reaches the site, if you're doing it right, it should be gone. It should already be spoken for by that point if you're doing your job.
Yeah. It's hard to get anyone to go to any website or to anywhere that's not just Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever where they go. Like we're all forced to conform to this thing, and no matter what, I don't know. It's like we're captive to these things, and I think that's what is unsettling for a lot of people.
We don't have the attention span to go on a website. Like you can also see how much time someone spends on a page, and it's like 30 seconds, and that's it. They click, it's done. And it used to be a lot different. People would go to a page and they would read, the about me, and they would read the FAQs, and they would read your backstory. And that's one of the things that we looked at with our Black Claw site. It's like there's a story about like who Grime and I are, who we are, right?
Who you is?
Who he is. There's our backstory, and people don't look at it. They click right past it, and we assumed that our customers, our community would want to see that stuff, but no, they don't. They just want to go in and buy their thing and leave. And typically they're doing it from a phone, and they're in the shop or they're driving, they're, re-upping their stuff. And, that's cool, but I think it's important to be aware of that and not put stuff in people's face that they don't want to see.
Yeah. It's almost like if you overdo it, you're missing an opportunity. Like you've got a certain amount of stuff that you can put out before it's too much. So it's like a delicate balance. Because if you're posting five things a day, check out this new needle grouping and check out this one, it's like people are going to stop listening after a little while.
Exactly. I mean, and when there's so much of something, it becomes less interesting. When you flood it. If I were to post 10 tattoo machines a day, I don't think that I'd probably sell any of them. And I haven't tried to sell a tattoo machine in a while. I haven't even thought about it in a while. It's been nice taking a break. I've been getting into the shop a little bit more and making machines again, but I start wondering, like, how do I get this into someone's hands without putting it on the internet? Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to put it out there. I'd rather if I want to share it, maybe do it after it's already in someone's hands, not in a way that's like, hey, please send me some money.
And what's your reasoning for that? Is that to preserve maybe something of what used to be, or is it just your own personal feeling on it?
It's a few things. I think part of it is feeling like first off, I feel like there's enough tattoo machines. I feel like there's just, if every machine builder stopped making machines, there would be enough machines for a long time. Like, even for people to pass them on to their 8 apprentices, like, there's just enough, and there's enough stuff in the world. And I don't know, the last couple of years I've been kind of on this kick where I want to produce less things and less waste and consume less. And I just feel like, I've just contributed too much to the heap, you know? And if people really want something from me, they'll get in touch, and I'll make it out of something that is already around, you know, like just some scrap or whatever. And I don't know, not make more stuff, you know?
I just figured that was you flexing that you can make machines out of anything.
No, I just would rather, I don't know, like.
Is it a challenge? Is it more rewarding to you when you can do it that way?
It's just more interesting. If you look at Instagram, it's obvious that anyone can make a tattoo machine, you know?
Right.
I mean, how well they can make it work is another thing. But for me, I guess what maybe would set me apart at this point was just that I'm not involving myself in that whole shit show. You know, I'm kind of over it.
As like Instagram, for example, became more, you know, just dominating everything of how people put tattoo stuff out there, how did that affect the market? And as far as machine builders maybe taking ideas a little too much from other people and stuff?
Well, I mean, it was like a gold rush, you know, like everyone treated the internet and machine making and tattooing like a gold rush, like a cash grab, you know, and people are more easily able to cannibalize it and, you know, grab a hold of what you put out, like, and they're able to copy it just as fast as you show it. And it, in a sense, has, you know, it sort of devalues things, you know, like, you know, it's like when you hear about a tattoo or a machine or a painting or something, and it's not all over the internet. You have to go someplace to look at it. It's a lot more exciting when you get there and you're like, holy shit, like, I've always heard about this thing and now I see it.
And you're going to take the time to really look at every little piece of it.
Hold it, like literally smell it, like look at it, really check it out. And now it's just so fast. You know, click, 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 you know, as fast as you can to get past it and look at the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and feed it. And like you can't consume it fast enough. And, you know, it's like, it used to be where, you know, you go to a tattoo convention and you'd see people come up to your booth or someone else's booth and they would just flip through portfolios 2-3 pages at a time, you know, just as fast as they could, especially somebody like Chris Trevino's book, which was just filled with bodysuit after bodysuit, and you could spend hours looking at it. But I would see people go through his portfolio in 5 minutes. And it's the same thing now where they're just clicking until they see the thing that they like.
Or the
they
thing
really
that
like, and then they take a screenshot, and then they save that one little thing. And I don't know, I'd rather what I do not be part of the stuff that just gets clicked past. I don't do it for that. I don't do it for the consumption, you know. And there, you know, there have been times in my career, in my work life, that I've felt the need or actually had the need to keep up in some way, whether it be to pay the bills or to stay relevant. It's just not part of my life anymore.
Why not?
I think simplifying things for myself and focusing more on a quality of life, because, you know, while you can spend a lot of time making a lot of money, you never get that time back, you know. And like, what price can you put on spending time with people that you care about and your kids and stuff? You know, I have my kids the majority of the time. They're with me like 80%, 90% of the time these days. You know, when they were with me like half the time, I had a lot more hours to work. And now if I work those kind of hours, I'm finding myself away from them, and it's essentially putting a price on those hours that I don't get to be with them. You know, it's essentially like, this is what it costs for me to be away from my kids. And I'd rather not have the money and just spend the time with them, you know, because they're teenagers. They're going to be out of the house sooner than later. And I'm not going to wish that I had missed more time with them,
Right.
And there's always time to make more money. And, I have less money now than I've had in a long time, but my life is more simple and I think it's a lot more gratifying, to not worry about it, not have to hustle constantly, Just kind of grew tired of the hustle and like, oh, I better go make machines. And then it's like, I better sell these machines. It's just not fun anymore,
How many machines, if you had to guess, do you think you've made in your life?
Oh man. 2-3 dozen.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, a lot. It's been a lot. I don't know. I mean, in the probably 10,000 range-ish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could probably do math and figure it out, maybe on an average. But there was a period where it was like 100 or more a month.
Wow.
And
all by yourself, or did you have help then?
I've had help in different capacities over the years. It's been, everything from just me or one person with me to like a shop with, literally 10 people doing different things like running an office, one person, managing an office, one person managing a website, one person, doing photos and handling Instagram, one person that was, winding coils, one person that was putting coils on frames, like, we had like a full operation where I was like paying for everyone's health insurance and the overhead in that was about $50,000 a month for everyone's, for the rent and all the materials, everything, their health insurance, all the stuff. It was a lot of money. So you have this minimum of like, this is how many machines I have to sell every month in order to get everyone fed, in order to make sure that the people that work with me who have families are able to get a paycheck, or they're going to quit and then I'm going to be screwed and then they're going to be screwed or whatever. So, let's just say the minimum is, 50 or 100 machines a month, and that's what I have to sell in order to break even. Here I am saturating a market to no one's benefit other than the paychecks for the people that work for me. And while I care about those people, it is harmful to me and the longevity of myself and my relevance in the tattoo business as a machine maker, but also to the tattoo community as well, because with that sort of quantity, it's really difficult to maintain that the level of quality that created the reputation for me to be able to sell that many machines.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a unique thing in that you really need to have your hand in a lot of the parts that matter. You can't just let it run itself in a business like that.
Absolutely. And, even with, for the last, and after I stopped doing the shop that way back in, that was probably 2012-ish where
You just made the decision to.
It was a short period. It was like 2 years where the shop was like that. It was just too much. I couldn't deal. It was too much. So then I pared it down to 2 guys with me, and then I pared it down to 1 guy with me, and he was great. Now, he was with me for 8 years, and it was this past May that we just decided to call it quits. And it wasn't because he was doing anything wrong. He was great. It was just that it was having to meet that minimum.
It's not even worth it at that point
at all. It's not, because I'm selling, 30, 40 machines a month, like a machine a day, and not keeping any of the money, literally not keeping a dime. And I looked at it, it was about 2 years of breaking even when I was just like, well, I just can't do it anymore. And I like was going to call it quits. Like in December, and then I was like, shit, Christmas is coming up. And then I was like, his anniversary is coming up. And then it was New Year's, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it right after the New Year, and it was something else. And then finally in May, I like went and had a talk with him, and he's like, okay, it's cool, whatever. He's like, I figured it was coming, and
back to the welfare office. Thanks, Seth.
Now he'll be great. He's got a job, but he got a job quickly.
Yeah.
If
he was the one guy that you kept, he must have been pretty good.
Well, he was also really well paid, which was expensive, because after 8 years of raises for a person who's your right hand, it gets really expensive, and I really care about the dude a lot. So I was willing to hand over a machine business to him and basically say, hey, dude, if you want to sell machines, if you want to do your own machine thing, I'll fully give you my blessing. I've already shown you everything I have to teach anyone. You know how to do this stuff from start to finish without missing a beat. You can do this entire thing yourself. Go on and make machines if you want to. And he was like, I don't know that I want to do that. He's like, he like wanted to do repairs. So I said, man, you should just, do all the repairs that I don't feel like fucking with and have people pay you like an hour, like a shop rate. And he's like, I don't feel like it.
He had enough too.
He's doing construction now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still friends, and we go on rides and stuff together.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. This week's episode is sponsored by TatSoul, providing tattoo supplies and shop furniture to the professional tattoo artist. How often are you complaining about your sore back or neck? They might have exactly what you should be sitting on or having your stinky clients sit on. Check them out at tatsoul.com or on Instagram at tatsoul. And also, while he's not a sponsor, he is this week's guest, and Seth wanted me to mention to you his latest project called Machine. It's an online video workshop for professional tattooers to teach you about machine function, liner versus shader, and a better understanding of the physics behind springs and their relation to frame geometry. Rotaries are great, but are you using them because you don't actually understand your coil machines? Do you even have coil machines? It's not something to be ashamed of, and this is actually a pretty convenient solution to that problem since you can watch these videos from the comfort of your own creepy little home. The course starts on Monday, August 20th. Enrollment's only open until Sunday, August 12th. So if you're listening to this episode right as it's released, you still don't have much time. Go to MACHINEMACHINE.co and sign up before it's too late. The course costs $400, but if you use the code BOOKSCLOSED, all one word, when checking out, you'll get $50 off. At that price, you gotta figure you've got a drawer full of coil machines you never use that each cost more than this course. So put the value back in those machines and continue on your lifelong journey towards actually knowing what the fuck you're doing. Again, use code BOOKSCLOSED when signing up on MACHINEMACHINE.co and enroll in the course now for just $350. All the specifics and additional info about that course is also on that website. All right, thanks for hanging in there. I think we need to get into the topic of the Reed Street Forum.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, so for people, if listeners don't know what that is, just give a brief overview of what the Reed Street Forum was all about.
The Reed Street Forum. It was actually, it came about when I got my first website. My buddy Aaron, who I grew up with in Baltimore, was a web developer, website builder guy. And when he put my site together, he's like, do you want a forum? And I was like, what's a forum? And he showed me some car forums and shit like that. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. He's like, it'd be, good for your shop, good for machines. And I was like, all right. And we put this forum up, and at the time there was one, I believe, and I think it was called the Starlight Tattoo Forum, and there were probably, I don't know, 10, 15 members or something. It was just like a handful of dudes that would argue, and like 2 or 3 good tattooers, and the rest were like fucking total scratchers. And I had built the forum, and I sent a message to a couple of the guys on there. I was like, or I might have even posted like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I want to do it differently. I want it to be kind of more contained, and I want it to be sort of an invite only or membership by request sort of deal, not totally open. And people started jumping on it, and I think what really helped early on was that Aaron Kane was active, and Grime was active, and Dan Gilsdorf was part of it, and there were a lot of my peers were kind of in on it, and we were all having a lot of fun with it, and it grew and grew and grew to the point where I was enlisting the help of like moderators and administrators that were volunteering to kind of keep things rolling for us, and it kind of just turned into what was like sort of the first like online tattoo community.
What was your initial idea for like what it would actually be? Like, what did you think people were going to discuss?
The mission statement for it was I think it was like to it was supposed to be just like an exchange of information, you know. I can't remember exactly what it said on the forum, but it was like essentially to create an environment of professional tattooers exchanging information and like critiquing one another's photos and saying things that you typically wouldn't put out there, but knowing that you were in the company of professionals, it was okay to talk about that stuff.
So as the forum grew and it kind of developed itself a bit, there's kind of a culture to it, I guess.
Right.
Like how would you describe the kind of environment that the forum became after more users were getting on there?
It was always, I mean, for the most part, really lighthearted and fun. You know, it kind of caught I guess caught a bad rap as being elitist just because it was kind of a closed door thing and you had to submit an application or a membership had to be approved, you know, so that sort of pissed a lot of people off. And it sort of like begat all these other forums that people were like, well, fuck that guy, I'm going to do my own forum. And like, then it was like 18 different machine forums, and you know, and that sort of. Well, we can get into that in a minute. But the forum itself was a lot of fun for a long time, and I think at its peak it was like 12,000 members, which at the time was a lot. You know, at the time it was the biggest community of tattooers online that anybody had seen at that point. I didn't realize going into it that it would be such a vehicle for sales or advertising or anything. And people started approaching me to want to buy banner ad space. And then I was bumming people out for choosing one person's banner ad and not another one. And, you know, it was almost like the MySpace top friends deal where like people would get mad that you weren't in their top 8 if you didn't let them put a banner on your site, and people would like want to trade banners with their forum and your forum and all this incestuous bullshit. And I had no idea that it was going to be like that. But you know, it's sort of, I think with it being a thing that some people felt excluded from, that sort of created more and more and more forums kind of popping up, and each of those forums kind of had their own little following. And then once people had their own following and their audience, then they were like, well, I should start making machines and sell them to my audience. You know, and that sort of became the business model for a while, which wasn't what I intended.
Yeah.
But it did generate a lot of interest in my machines that I didn't expect. It was kind of out of nowhere. Because I didn't go into it expecting that. I was like, oh, that would be cool, but I was new to the internet, you know?
Right. And it's funny that being new to the internet, you still came upon this idea and this thing that really turned into a big thing for tattooing. You know, like most people are on it, and some people can say that maybe marked where too much information started to be given away.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those same people probably have a story of something that they learned that they still think about today.
Yeah.
You know, basic stuff. So it's
Well, it
easy
wasn't like
to like reject that, but from where I'm sitting, I think it was a good thing.
Well, it wasn't like it was a how-to of tattooing.
Right.
I mean, I think that the most beneficial stuff that was on there was, you know, like being able to see like up close photos of Aaron carving frames, or of people's Mike Dorsey's paintings or BJ Betts paintings, or you know, getting really harsh real critiques from people like Grime. That was the real stuff. There was never a like, this is how you tattoo kind of a thing. And I think that people sort of have this assumption that it was like this like a tattoo school kind of a thing almost, but it wasn't. That wasn't it at all. It was like, this is what happened in my shop today. Here's photos of, you know, some asshole that came in or whatever. You know, here's pictures of a tattoo I did, or a funny story, or like, this is the shit we got into, you know. And there'd be these epic threads about people's experiences that were for the most part just funny.
Yeah.
You know, it was really entertainment, but it was like shop talk with people all around the world that you typically wouldn't get to see.
Yeah, I would liken it now to like a closed Facebook group is really what it was. So it's
Right.
interesting how it was very ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because now it's just very much in line with what people use all the time now.
Right.
I know it was good for me when I was first starting a tattoo to being on there, because it gave me an attitude, or it gave me a point of view that I really lacked from the people that I worked with. As far as seeing people critique others' tattoos on the forum really showed like a cutthroat, like no excuse kind of attitude that I think really helped me. It's intimidating, and it was hard to swallow at first, but that specifically is what I remember that I got out of it, just really starting to look at why I'm drawing things a certain way or why I'm doing things the way that I do it. And really you have to have reasoning for it, and you can't just call it a style or, you know.
Right. Well, and there's also the people that would attempt to critique without really having much of anything to stand on, you know, where...
And then everyone piles in and calls him a fucking loser.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, that's kind of why part of the deal, part of being on that forum was you had to put the year you started tattooing. So that way, if you're gonna critique, if you're gonna act like you know some shit, we want to know where you base that from. You know, like where is that coming from that you're claiming to know all this shit? And, you know, somebody said they started tattooing in 1984 and can verify that, you're going to listen to them, you know?
Right.
And if it's just some random dude who calls himself Fire God 666, which that was a thing, you know, just typing in all caps and yelling about shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to discredit that stuff, you know? And there's also the people that wouldn't say shit in public. You know, there was also the people that were like, you know, really apt to, you know, being internet tough guys and, you know, giving super harsh critiques that would never say those things in person. And, you know, that is sort of kind of taking the bad with the good. You know, you have to sort of filter stuff out where you can.
Do you think that there's room for something like that to ever emerge again? I mean, we're already talking about how hard it is to get anyone to go to any website other than that, but for something really kind of pure like that, now it might be refreshing in a way.
I think that there is a place for it. Those forums still exist for all other industries and interests. They're still out there. If I don't know, like I typically, I don't pay a lot of attention to this stuff, but I see people using, you know, like microblading forums, and they're massive. Where there's microblade technicians, like thousands and thousands all over the world, that are like communicating about which equipment they like and which techniques, and they're like going to seminars and conventions and all this shit. And there's massive online communities for this sort of stuff. And I do feel that there's a place for, you know, sort of a revival of a forum like that. And I've had countless people suggest that I started up again, and I can't imagine having the time to fuck around online like that anymore.
Because I think the problem is, what would anyone get out of creating that?
I think the same thing that anyone's ever gotten out of it is sort of a captive audience. Yeah. You know, I think the person who is in control of that, who has that, you know, crowd of, you know, 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 people, or however many it is.
It'd probably be even more now, because you can spread the word about it so much.
It would be the same thing as it was back then. You know, I don't know that it would be as powerful, but I think there are tattoo forums that still exist.
Well, what happened to the Reed Street forum? It turned into Tattoodles?
It turned into Tattoodles, which I didn't know that it was going to turn into Tattoodles. I thought it was, it didn't really turn into Tattoodles. It was absorbed by Tattoodles. God, I fucking hate that name. I really like Adam Sky a lot, but
Toodler. Proud toodler.
Tattoodles. Adam took it over, installed it on his site. It became Reed Street Part 2.
Yeah.
And when that happened, a lot of people were like, fuck that. There's no way I'm going on a site called Tattoodles. So I had another one. It was like the secret Reed Street Forum defectors.
Oh shit!
There was like another one. It was like the side door
I didn't
because
know
it was
about
like
that. I was too green to get in on that one.
I can't remember how long after Adam did the Reed Street Forum, but it was like the secret, and it's actually still online. You can find it online. Yeah, I think if you type in like RSTF defectors on Google, it's like still up on like EasyBoard or whatever EasyBoard became. I forget what it's called now, but you can still access it.
Let's get on there.
Should.
Let's go critique some shit.
Yeah,
from
I was actually
15 years
thinking
ago.
about getting on Vero now and like getting all the followers, you know, like being the one who's like ahead of the curve on followers.
I think if you get about 30, you're crushing it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I wonder if anyone is actually on that. That was like the biggest up and down that I've seen in a long time. Like so everyone jumped onto it and then it crashed so hard because they were putting out the articles that the guy that owns it is like enslaving people or whatever it was.
Well, it also didn't work.
Right.
Like
Well, yeah.
I tried. I made an account, but I couldn't get it to upload any pictures at all. And everybody's like, everyone's switching to Vero. I'm like, fuck, man, I gotta be part
but we
of that.
all knew that wasn't going to happen.
I didn't know.
But no one wants to be left behind. You're going to be like,
Exactly.
well, I want to get on it first. But it's so
I know.
crazy how everyone does the same thing.
Yeah.
And even when you realize that,
Yeah.
you'll still do it.
How many people do you think felt slighted when the Green Circle thing came out that they weren't invited to be part of it? How, like instead of like they were
The
I know
same
there-
number of people that were very pissed about it.
right? But I mean, do you think that like any of the people who were pissed about it were actually just fucking insulted that they weren't invited to be in the elite crew that changed tattooing?
Well, they never admit it. But I would say that the people that maybe were the most vocal to denounce the people that were involved with it would also have a very hard time turning up an opportunity like that.
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to like, because there are a lot of people who are really outspoken about Ink Master and the shows, and I've always wanted to like prank call them as producers
Yeah.
and like get them to agree to be on the show and then blast them.
We should do a prank call episode.
Dude, that was when I had Reed Street. I had this kid working with me who he was supposed to be my apprentice, but we just fucked off all the time. He didn't really start tattooing. Maybe he did like a couple tattoos when he worked with me. He was a refugee from New Orleans after the floods, and I took him in at the shop, and I was like he was like a friend of a friend, and he had been into doing prank calls for a long time, to the point where like he needed therapy. Like he was fucking addicted to it, and we started getting into it, and we would buy all these burner phones, and we would have like, it was like $400 or $500 a month. It was like $400 or $500 a month in burner phones, where we would just be, we'd go across the street to the drugstore and buy all the phones, and then start getting real paranoid and buying them all over towns. we had a list of people, and every day I'd come into work, and like Chris, Stinky Chris, he was my dude. I'd come in and he'd be like scrubbing tubes, and I'm like, did you call Tom Fisher? And be like, oh shit, I'm like, fucking call Tom Fisher. And like, that was like the list of things to do in the morning, was like make all the prank calls, then scrub the tubes. Like, prioritize here. I mean, that shop was a shit show. We'd throwing water balloons in the shop, and you name it.
A lot of serious work going on in there.
Oh yeah, it was so good. Yeah, it was so good.
I love that idea of approaching people with different business propositions to see how loyal they are.
Right.
before
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
calling
Like
people
you call
sellouts.
somebody and you're like, hey, I'm calling you from Ink Master, and I'm a producer, and like one of the best calls there was a shop called Bad Ronald's. It was legit called Bad Ronald's.
A
And
tattoo shop. Bad Ronald's.
Yeah.
Where was that?
it was in Pennsylvania, like York. It's closed now. And
Shocking.
there was this Irish lady, thick Irish accent. She'd answer the phone. She was the piercer, and her husband or boyfriend Ronald was the tattooer. And we'd call her all the time, and it was always we'd call her, and it would be like calling, like ask for a price, like how much for tribal armband or Celtic armband or whatever. And it was always like, okay, cool. Well, I'll come down, and maybe when we're done, I can use your mouth as a pussy. And this woman would lose her shit, because every fucking time it was always the same punchline. It was always,
Right.
well, maybe when we're done, I'll use your mouth as a pussy. Every time, no matter what it was, a piercing, an armband, a dolphin. And then we called him and interviewed him for a tattoo magazine. We're like, it's Marcus from Tattoo Magazine. And interviewed the guy for 20 minutes on like his technique and his background. And he's just like, oh, I can't wait to see this. Like, yeah, we're going to send a photographer down on Wednesday if you're going to be around. And when he's done taking pictures, maybe he'll use your mouth as a pussy. And fucking dude lost it. So like the coup de grace of that series with Bad Ronald was fuck. So good. Fucking, we're like, Chris and I are hanging out. It's like 3 a.m. and we're like, want to call him at home. We're trying to find this guy's home number. And we're like digging through tax records online. We're like finding the property owner and like hoping maybe his name's not really Bad Ronald. We call the number that's associated with the tax record, and it's his landlord for the tattoo shop. And it's like 3 a.m. And my buddy Chris is like, this is Officer so-and-so, and there's been a break-in, and we need to get a hold of your tenant at the tattoo shop. And so Bad Ronald calls. He's like, what's going on? He's like, oh, there's been a robbery at your place. There's some broken glass and some of your stuff is missing, but we've apprehended a suspect. We've got him at the station. We need you to come down and ID him. And he's like, okay, I'll be right down. Okay, well, maybe when you get down here, I can use your mouth as a pussy. And you know, it was just that a lot.
Yeah.
It was just that. It was a lot of that.
That must have driven him nuts.
Oh, it was a nightmare for him.
Did you ever record any of those calls?
Oh yeah, there were thousands of calls recorded. I don't know that we should use any of this on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe a little bit.
I don't know that we should use any of this.
So, since you're in the tat supply biz, someone brought it to my attention recently about micro. What do they call it when you stipple someone's hair onto their head? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's something pigmentation, micros.
Yeah,
skin.
micropigmentation, or like I don't know.
It's for bald people,
Right.
and it can like.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called. I've seen it.
Yeah, it can.
I've seen people do a really good job of it.
Yeah, it can really give a convincing look of like a hairline and stuff, like you have a really tight haircut or something. But someone asked me if I was aware that like supplier websites for people that do those hair tattoos, they're just like cartridges, like any tattooers would use, but they're marked up like 10 times higher.
That's good to know.
Crazy. So what I'm here to ask you, welcome to Books Closed Shark Tank edition. Now, Sharks, I'd like to give you my pitch. I waited to do this in person. This isn't even a real podcast. But how crazy is that?
It's insane. Yeah, I am aware that there's a massive market for it, and
because they say these are specially formulated cartridges.
Yeah.
Compatible with Bishop rotaries, of course. But so that's the same thing.
Right.
And I didn't know what that stuff cost, so I looked it up on like Kingpin, and then I compared it to what it was on like hairtats.com or whatever they sell it from, with like some slick micro pigmentation site. And it's like
Brow Pro or whatever.
yeah, it's like $600 for 100 cartridges or something.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But they don't care because I'm sure it costs a lot to do that procedure. So
It does, and these are like middle-aged housewives predominantly who are taking up that practice. You know, because they're like, you know, it's like the new like easy tattoo at home kit. You know, like you can be a tattoo artist too.
Can you imagine if your whole day, every day, consisted of dotting people's hair?
No.
How tedious is that?
Ask Thomas Hooper.
Damn.
I had to.
I mean, what's the lifespan of someone who does that for a career? A year? Because they can't afford.
I don't know. I feel like
equipment.
there's people who there's a dude who's really good at it. We posted one of his pictures on Black Claw because he uses Black Claw needles. I think he uses a single. Like he doesn't. I don't know that he uses cartridges at all. I have no idea, but I know that he uses some traditional bar needles, and his result is insane.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So at this point, how much do you keep tabs on tattooing in general?
None.
None at all?
Not really. No. I mean, no. I really don't. I don't keep tabs on tattooing. I mean, well, I'm aware of stuff here and there, but I feel like I learn about a new tattooer at least once a week. Someone, you know, like I look through through the explore page more than I will the feed on Instagram, and that's kind of how I'm finding out about stuff, or, you know, people or tattooers or whatever. And I'll look through the explore page and I'll click on something that looks cool, and then I'll realize I've never heard of them, and then I'll go down this wormhole of like looking at their stuff and realize that like they and everyone they follow does killer tattoos, and they've all been tattooing like 1/10 of the time that I have.
Yeah.
And they're great. And then I'm just like, fuck it. You know, like what else is there to look at?
What do you think is the biggest contributor to people getting good so fast?
I think it's the availability of information, the availability of equipment. There are more good tattooers now than, you know, when I started tattooing, you know, I hate to say it, but the guy who I did my apprenticeship with didn't know what the fuck he was doing. Like I think he meant well, sort of, but he was like a scummy biker dude who, like, you know, outlined everything with a single or a 3 and filled it in with a 14 round and didn't know how to tune a machine. And now there are just more and more people who can put on good tattoos and who can teach people to put on good tattoos. And, you know, of course there's the people who are self-taught, you know, and by and large, most of them aren't very good, but there are the people who are smart. They're intuitive people. And it's not, you know, if you have the right equipment and you're able to see it, I guess the combination of like the equipment that's available now and the information that's available now it's better than a shitty apprenticeship, you know, because
that's true.
I spent a year just fucking people up because my boss didn't know what he was doing. If it were a year of like using real equipment with real needles, real pigments, and watching videos over and over again, I probably would have learned a lot more, you know. He was cutting people using hook needles, using dirty needles, like all the wrong shit, you know, blowing into his tube to clean out the excess water, and like, you know, giving people staph infections and strep and whatnot. And anyone who starts tattooing now knows that you're not supposed to do that. There's right. Like so much more education available, where like, I think at this point, anyone doing bad tattoos has no excuse. Like what excuse do you have to do bad tattoos now?
Right. Yeah, because you can get all the information and it's totally free. It's just all there for the taking.
It's all there. And I mean, you can buy, you know, the best needles that have ever been available. You can buy the best machines that have ever been available. Really good pigment. Like it's all just getting better and better, and people are demanding better and better.
Yeah.
So like, you know, really, what's the variable? You know, you can't really teach intuition, but you can teach ability and you can teach skill. So
you've been recently working on a new project that you've posted some stuff about, as far as education about machines.
That's it's been sort of not back burner, middle burner project with my friend, my buddy Alex, who I've done a couple of projects here in Portland with, and it's he came to me and he's like he saw me doing, you know, that I had some workshops. Oregon has a continuing education requirement where you have to have a certain amount of hours every week to keep your license, and they'll audit you. They'll come and say, you know, where's your certification of completion? And I put together a workshop that's accredited with the state of Oregon, where I'd have like 8 or 10 people come at a time, and they'd get some hours in with me learning to tune machines. And he's like, why don't you just do a video thing, and that way you don't have to do it over and over again, and why don't you do a video thing so that way you can reach more people? And I was like, I don't know how to do it, you know, like I don't, you know, it was kind of like when I was new to the internet. He's like, I can put this together for you. I can produce it. I can film it. I can package it for you, and we can make something that isn't really instructional, but it's educational and sort of a supplement to what people might have already gotten through, whether it's self-training or an apprenticeship or whatever else. It's kind of just like just some extra stuff, and it's the way that I do it, the way that I do the extra stuff.
I've always felt a little bit helpless in the machine department, so I think that it's a great opportunity to kind of continue my quest of understanding and everything.
Yeah. I think I think a lot of people share that. I think that's why people use rotaries now. People are putting down coil machines for a number of reasons. The spring steel that we're getting now is not what it used to be. It's now typically all made in India or Pakistan. It used to be American made. It's really hard to get good spring steel. It's all brittle. It's not made to the same standards. It's not the same alloy. It's not the stuff we used to get. And that spring isn't designed to do what we're asking of it. It's designed to, go like switch on and off, like on a solar end, like a relay, but not 100 times a second, So you're having a lot more broken springs than you would have, even 5 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Like the stuff is supposed to last a lifetime. I've got machines that are older than me that still have the same springs on. And that helplessness is what makes people put that machine away and never pick it up again and go, man, that guy's machines suck, or coil machines suck. And what I'm hoping to do is get people hyped on coil machines and get hyped on knowing stuff. And, when their coworker's machine breaks or their machine breaks, they can just take their gloves off and fix it and have confidence to do it on the fly, know what they're doing, feel it, listen to it, know what they're listening for, know what they're feeling for and why, and get back to work and maybe answer some questions for their coworkers too, and kind of get them hyped on that little part of magic again, Yeah,
because you definitely have a bigger sense of pride in the machines that you use if you know that that you can make them your bitch a little bit more.
With it, I think that goes for anything. I think that if you work on your own car or motorcycle, or even putting your own skateboard together, when you put the grip tape on it and, cut it out and put the wheels on and fresh bearings, it's like it feels so much better than going to buying when you go to the skate shop and like the guy puts it together for you. That feels lame. You feel like a fucking poser.
Right.
So like when you're able to do something yourself and own it and have an authentic conversation about it with your peers, know what you're doing. It makes a huge difference in your work, I think.
Right. I feel like the best thing I realized is that the problem is usually my clip cord before anything. I think we blame machines for a lot of stuff, but it's usually just a clip cord is going to go south a lot quicker than anything else. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a clip cord that is like, has a really strong spring. I don't understand why we don't use something better. Like RCAs are better. A phono plug is better. I don't know why the tattoo community is so resistant to just switching over completely, from binding post and clip cord to something that just plugs in. I mean, can you imagine like charging your laptop with a clip cord?
Right, right.
Like, and there's a reason why nothing else uses that. No other industry, no other business or craft uses that setup.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you put RCA plugs on every machine?
The rotary crowd is kind of pushing in that direction. And I think that like as a coil machine builder for years and years, I've always discussed this with people like my peers, like Aaron Kane. He'd always be like, fuck clip cords, and we would talk about wanting people to switch to plugs. And we didn't think that anyone ever would. We always assumed that there would be a pushback against it. Like, nope, people don't want it. People want to have a clip cord. So we've always been apprehensive to sort of like make that be our thing, and now it's like, man, we totally could have done that. The rotary guys all do it. All those pens have plugs. None of those have clip cords. And this is something that we could have and should have done years ago.
Right.
And I would say the reason that I don't do it now is because I don't make enough machines now for it to matter.
And it's almost like the people that are still sticking with coils might be more like the purist crowd anyway, that wouldn't want it.
Right. They want it to look cool and sound cool.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I have, friends that have been using plugs for 20 years, like Timothy Hoyer. He's been on plugs for as long as I can remember. Mm-hmm. Grime has been on plugs forever. He only uses plugs.
So it's okay. Everyone out there listening, it's okay.
It is okay. It's fine. But, it's like these are guys who are great tattooers who've been on this thing forever for a reason, But you're right. It is, and it's either the foot switch or the clip cord, usually.
I got a good question for you.
Okay.
Why do you think that tattooers are so defensive?
I have a theory about that. I think that tattooers are spoiled by their customers. I think that tattooers, no matter how good or how shitty they are, their customers tell them they're great. And they have people telling them that they're great all day, every day. You're so good. This is amazing. Here's $500. This is amazing. You know, here's 1,200 likes. This is amazing. Here's money. You know, like, you're amazing. You're amazing. And when somebody says, hey, you're not so amazing, their whole fucking world comes crushing down. And they're not used to that. And it's like taking away that little shot of dopamine for a second.
Right.
They're like, they're not, what? I didn't get another like.
What if all the likes just disappeared? What would we be left with?
Yeah, like what if the commenting was all turned off?
Do you think that's what fuels a lot of people now? That if that aspect wasn't there, that we can't just show off what we did and get validation from it?
Haven't you ever noticed somebody will post a tattoo and it'll be kind of a dud and then they'll delete it?
Yeah, and sometimes they post it again.
Mm-hmm. See if maybe they posted it the wrong time of day.
Right.
See how it goes. Yeah. I just kind of the voyeur in me sometimes I'll check in on certain accounts of like people that I'm not a huge fan of as like an artist or a person. And I'll just kind of like once in a while I'll look just for the reality show aspect of it. And I'll see that they've taken down a tattoo that I knew sucked. You know, and eventually they figured out that it sucked.
Right.
Or maybe it just wasn't, you know, maybe just people, you were talking with Chris, I think the other day. Were you talking with Chris about it the other day about how like, you know, certain things just don't get the engagement.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
I think that.
some stuff's more striking just due to
right.
the way
and I think that people the current like new generation of tattooers, when they set out to do a tattoo, it's with the concern or with the consideration for how the internet is going to react to that tattoo. And does it fall in line with their audience's expectation of that artist? Does it fit with the other stuff they do? Is it as cool as their other stuff? Is it going to like upset their algorithm, you know?
Yeah.
I've said that if I were to have an apprentice, I wouldn't let them have an Instagram. I wouldn't let them like show their stuff and get followers, because I feel like earning a clientele and earning a following is something that comes later. I don't think that you should get recognition before excellence. I think that it should be accomplishment first, then recognition. And I think that people fish for recognition first as they're building experience and building accomplishment. And then, you know, 2 years into their apprenticeship, they finally do a good tattoo and they've already got a following that's like built in. And I don't think that builds a whole lot of character.
Builds a lot of ego.
I think that it builds and it's a false ego, you know?
It was an interesting thing that I saw when I had made a video about soul tattoos. And I went out in the woods behind my house with my wife, and she put on a blonde wig. Mm-hmm. And it was a spoof on a real woman that does stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I put it up on Facebook, and it got 2 million views in a week.
People thought it was real.
People thought it was real. They didn't even question it.
Right, and there were people who thought it was real that were mad about it, and people who thought it was real that were stoked on it.
Right. I got so many messages from people trying to make appointments with her, thinking that I was like her agent. And the thing that was interesting about it is that they were all like creepy men.
Really?
100%. There was not a single woman that wrote to get tattooed by Ember, the soul tattooer.
Oh my God.
And some of them I would respond and see how far I could take it. And I said like $1,500 minimum, $2,200 minimum. Everyone was like, done. I'm into it. And it was like right before winter. So I looked at Rachel and I was like, you're going to have to start tattooing now because we're going to be rich. They don't care if it's good. They want to be healed.
Right. People, I think these days, I think that people can create a persona and then capitalize on the persona. And it's sort of, I don't know, I guess I think that's always been present in the tattoo business. There's always been people that were characters that had customers because they were characters.
Yeah, because people can latch onto that and identify with it, or like it becomes more of a thing. And it's funny because all the stuff that I focus on when I make parody videos, it's pretty much that concept is what intrigues me. People that like create this weird circus around themselves. But the more I do all this stuff, like podcasting and videos, I'm kind of becoming that person in a different way, because I've got more than double the audience or like recognition from my peers that I had when I just did tattoos and put them online.
Right. I mean, you could separate it and make an account. You could separate it to make an account that's for your tattoos.
Yeah.
And then have an account that's for your entertainment.
Right.
You know, I think it comes down to what you want your clientele to be. You know, it used to be that you would cultivate a clientele locally. You know, you would, you'd go to the bar and, you know, hand out a business card or two and get to know people, and you develop your clientele by interacting, whether it be, you know, tattooing, you know, people that live in the neighborhood, or just meeting them when you're out or whatever. And that doesn't happen anymore. There's no more legwork, you know? And I think that there are people, there are tattooers that don't exist really on the internet, that have people that look at Grez, you know, he's not on the internet. He doesn't involve himself with that yet. He's doing fine. He's books closed.
Yeah. Well, it kind of creates another, like a special allure to someone, but it's assumed that they're also a great tattooer. Like, you can't just be Joe Schmo and do that and get the recognition for it. But
the thing is, though, like,
desirable because
you can in certain places, you know, like in the Midwest, you know, you have shops that, you know, this guy's been tattooing there for 25, 30 years, and he's got his local clientele, and that's just who they go to. And like you know, the guy who I started working for, he had lines out the door all the time, and he was legendary in our area. He sucked, and he was legendary. And he cultivated that clientele for himself without the internet.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, there's something to be said for, you know, needing that now. But I think that there are people who disprove it all the time. You know, I think it depends on what your target audience is, like where, like in what level of the tatosphere you want to be.
The tatmosphere. So do you have any good, any stories? I like to try to end on a more fun note.
When I tattooed Chad Keplinger a really long time ago, and at that point he wasn't Chad Keplinger. He was just, you know, he was some guy, you know, he wasn't like fucking a powerhouse tattooer, you know?
Yep.
I was, I think it was Atlanta. I was sharing a booth at a convention with Grime, and Chad he had just started tattooing, and he wanted his fingers tattooed, and he wanted hold fast on his knuckles. And I don't think I don't think he had anything else on his hands at the time. Now, luckily you can't see them, what I put on him, but he wanted to get hold fast. And I drew it on and it looked okay. And I told Grime, I was like, I'm going to do the A upside down. And he was like, why? I was like, 'cause it's fucking gangster. And he's like, no, you won't. And I was like, yes, I am. Watch. And I like, just without even telling Chad, just did it. I just did the A upside down. And he looked so panicked. He's like, what? And I was like, it's gangster. And he's like, oh, okay. And he like didn't say shit. And ever since then, I've wanted to get tattooed by Chad, but I'm fucking terrified because like I'm wondering what's gonna happen.
Yeah, anything's on the table at this point.
Yeah, and it would be fair. It would be fair. Felt terrible about that one for a really long time. And I remember him telling me that it was me. And he's like, yeah, you did this and this happened. And I was like, oh fuck. I'm sorry. like that was such a dick move. I have enough shitty tattoos as a result of that experience, I think.
It's only fair.
Yeah, and I still have them.
So from here, where do you think this crazy train called tattooing's headed?
Whew, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's only building speed, and it's only building more and more momentum. You know, I think the New York Times today did an article about tattooers who are millionaires.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that there's been stuff published about how much money we make.
Remember when I started seeing when they would do the yearly thing where they put like average, like annual salary, and then you'd start to see tattooer on that.
Yeah, well, there was kind of a backlash about that some years ago. There was a lady tattooer, I think she was in upstate New York, had kind of said some stuff publicly about the kind of money that tattooers were making. And, you know, one, people were upset that she would divulge that. Two, people were upset that they weren't making that kind of money. You know? They were like, fuck her, she makes too much money, or fuck her, they shouldn't say how much money we make, you know? But the guy that I worked for drove a flashy car and had all sorts of jewelry. And, you know, it wasn't surprising to me when half of our clientele wanted to open tattoo shops.
Yeah. You make it look so good and so easy, you know? It seems like anyone can do it.
Yeah. And that guy's level of ability was, I mean, it was mediocre at best. So like, you know,
It's crazy small town tattooing, what you can get away with.
you can get away with anything. I always wonder about the tattoos that don't get photographed or don't get on the internet.
Yeah. They're probably all in the dark web.
No, I mean, I have a tattooer buddy who is a professional cyclist he was a professional cyclist that got banned from cycling professionally because he bought a Chinese boner pill and it had some shit in it that gives rats cancer and apparently shows up as a steroid.
Oh.
Or like some kind of a doping situation. It happens.
But it makes you hard as a rock.
Fucking research chemicals, man.
I'd be scared to take anything that I acquired that way.
Yeah, you live on the edge a little bit.
I don't live on the edge.
Yeah. You don't seem like a guy who lives on the edge.
No.
You'll probably live longer than I will.
Maybe. We'll see you in hell.
Yeah.
And with that, let's wrap it up. We've talked about it all. We figured out tattooing, so I hope that you guys all got a great insight into what you should be doing because we are obviously experts.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Another big thank you to this week's sponsor, TatSoul, and also to our guest, Seth Ciferri. You can follow Seth on Instagram at Seth Ciferri to keep up with everything he does. And again, I urge you all to sign up for his online video course on MACHINEMACHINE CO. And don't forget to use that code BOOKSCLOSED when signing up to save $50. And I do want to say, after spending some additional time talking to Seth after this interview, I think I'd describe him as a bit of a mad scientist. He gets into a lot of projects and has a passion for making stuff and for problem solving, and it doesn't really seem to have dulled at all over the years. You can follow me on Instagram at Andrew Stortz and find all info about this show on our website, booksclosedpodcast.com. Keep the messages coming to our voicemail line, 857-444-0662. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, critiques, just general thoughts, whatever you want to do. It's fun to get the messages from you guys. I've gotten some great questions so far that you will hear in upcoming episodes for sure. If you're enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you listen from. All you have to do is tap those 5 stars. It really helps the show. And next week, I will be back with probably the coolest human in tattooing in maybe the world, Freddie Corbin. See you then.